Okay, so I guess we're live now. So
Yay.
yeah, so for this episode of Ask Superbike Genius,
Episode.
yeah, right?
Episode something you have like a heart
I
attack.
know it's like a big, come on, this is so underground, whatever. I'm on tonight with Richard Stanboli from Fresh and Lean Attack Performance Yamaha Racing.
Yay.
What's up, Richard?
The usual stuff, getting ready for New Jersey and Barber, the last two.
Okay.
Season's gone by pretty fast.
Dude, it has. I can't even believe it. I
Yeah,
gotta figure out.
six races coming up at New Jersey and Barber, and I like those two tracks. We've always done pretty decent there in the past.
6 races. Does that mean that you guys are doing 3 races?
Yeah. So it's almost like World Superbike where they do Super Bowl, except our Super Bowl race is a full race.
Oh wow!
And it's full points paying, so it'll be a lot of work for the riders if they're not healthy,
Yeah.
But I think just about everybody's pretty comfortable with their bikes now. So yeah, it's the home stretch.
Wow, man. So with Jersey coming up, obviously we just had a couple of rounds where you had a substitute rider. You had JD Beach, and then at Pittsburgh you had Toni Elias. Like how did that work out?
Yeah, that was another one of those surprise things that we thought we were going to have Josh be healthy enough just to make the cut, but apparently the COVID kind of got hold of him pretty good, and the symptoms were long lasting. So I think what they said was no symptoms for 24 hours and no fever, meaning no cough, no sniffles, no bad taste or smell and all that. That's a symptom. So
right.
Yeah, so he couldn't ride. I got the message on Tuesday morning that he had talked to Dr. Rossi, I think, and Tom Upson talked to him also, and he said, Josh will be riding. Like, oh hell, do I call Will and Fernando and tell them to stay home? And I already had talked to them a bit and said, hey, I think you guys might have to stay home. They're all, we're good with that.
I bet they would be.
Yeah, so I said, well, stand by. Let's see what we can come up with. Let's not make that permanent yet, because we have an obligation to MotoAmerica and our sponsors to put 2 bikes on the podium. I mean, on the podium be nice, but on the grid. And so we're like, man, JD's tied up doing flat track that weekend, and we thought about. Then Lee says, how about who's the French kid that rode the 600s for M4? I think Lee worked with him. The Beast, yeah. He said, the Beast, but he's in like the French championship. You can't get somebody over here. And then, we thought about, a few different people, some of them foreigners. And then Joseph comes walking in and he's like, what's going on? I go, I think we're going to end up leaving one of the bikes home. And the truck had already left. And so he's, that sucks. I go, why don't you guys give Toni a call? I think he'd be anxious to get on the bike. And sure enough, I was like, I don't have Toni's number. I bet you Dustin does.
Yeah.
That's when I shot you a message and say, hey man, can you get a hold of Toni? And you're like, consider it done.
Yeah.
You got a hold of him. And I'm like, man, we got to make a decision quick, because I got to tell those guys to stay home or not stay home. And I got to get with MotoAmerica and tell them that we're changing riders again. I feel like the boy who cried wolf over here. And so literally in, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, he's like, I'm in.
I started trying to get a hold of Toni. It took me a little bit, and you're like, you're sending me the messages the whole time. You're like, dude, I really need to know like pronto. And I'm like, calm down. And finally got a hold of Toni, and I told him the deal. You gave me some parameters that we had to operate under. Don't need to go into super sloppy details with that, but basically Toni was like, I don't care about any of that. I want to ride that motorcycle. And I was like, well, you need to call Richard like right now. And I know after that he must have called you 30 times, because I know he called me 30 times. I don't think I've seen a rider that motivated to go racing in a long time.
Yeah, he's super motivated, man. I mean, still super motivated. And so he contacted us. I contacted Yamaha. They had to get with corporate, go through that chain of events. And so they had to do it before. That's why it was before a certain time, because I think they had a meeting like at 2 p.m. our time. So I had to get it done before that time so they can introduce it.
And I did, I do recall joking with you that Coiner was available.
What's that? Oh yeah, Coiner would ride that. I said, well, you better get him to pass the physical and qualify, and I think I had a few different.
Yeah, you had a
things in
laundry
there.
list of crap.
What's that?
You had a laundry list of crap that I had to jump through.
Yeah, I said, why don't you get a hold of Dustin and see if you can get a hold of Coiner?
Yeah. Yeah, and then I didn't know Ty Bangford. That dude definitely was down to race too. Big
Yeah,
fella.
there was a few people that I forgot about that were pissed off at me.
Yeah, well, honestly, man, I think
It happened literally in an hour.
Oh, really?
No, I mean the whole thing went down. I don't know, about an hour.
Yeah.
Come on. But the last thing I wanted to see was our bike sitting there on a table, not being used after all the work we do.
I mean, Tony, he was like, "Hey, I need to borrow one of your bikes," and I was planning on racing mine, and I was like, "Look, Tony, I'll give you one of the school bikes, like whatever, no big deal." But I was like, "I'll tell you right now, like this school bike's not going to have anything in common with that Superbike that you're about to ride." And I guess he connected with Alex White of all.
Oh, is that who you got a hold of, Alex White?
Yeah,
In LA over there.
Yeah, he got Alex B. White's. He borrowed his R1 and I guess rode it around at the go-kart track for a day.
Yeah, I mean that's how motivated he was. I mean, we basically did the deal Tuesday afternoon. Wednesday morning, he's borrowing a motorcycle, going to a go-kart track to get a feel for the bike and get some laps. And he did that for a few hours, and then he went home, probably got all his stuff, gear bag and all that stuff, and hopped on a plane and flew red-eye.
Oh, wow.
To Pittsburgh. Landed at 9 a.m.
No kidding.
He's lucky he's small because he can sleep on a plane. That'd be horrible.
Wow, man. Yeah.
And so he landed at 9 a.m. He's like, "What time do you need me at the track?" I said, "Don't you want to get a little bit of rest?" It's only Thursday.
He wanted to go racing right then. Like as soon as he found out he could ride, he was full "I'm gonna go racing" mode, and it was impressive. So you guys get there. Obviously, you got Tony, and Jake does Jake stuff, and just
Jake, he goes out, goes fast every session, gets pole, wins both races, blah blah blah. Everybody's happy. Okay, so move along.
Yeah,
nothing to see there.
So, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Tony riding. I mean, the guy, he was so impressive that weekend, and it looked like he spent a lot of time on the bike. It looked like he spent the maximum amount of time you guys had to ride, right?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as he got there, which I find encouraging because I've been working with riders that go in and out of the pit every lap. Sometimes they'll go out just go out the warm-up lap and come right back in and say, "Oh, it doesn't feel right to me," or something silly.
Right.
Like, but you're 5 seconds off the pace on a warm-up lap. What the hell are you talking about? That's what goes on in my brain, which I don't really say, which I should. But no, he was like, "Hey, is there any way we can just gas this thing up so I can just go do maximum laps?" I go, "Sure. Top it off, have fun." I think we didn't even put a tire on that thing. Maybe we did one at the end. And he ended up P3, P2, P3, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it looked like I was watching the times, every time you guys were out, I was watching the times. And, I was like, I guarantee you, Richard's got that guy just out ripping laps. And he was not out there trying to do one fast lap. He's trying to understand the motorcycle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what he did, which is real professional of him. He's definitely a different caliber rider than what you normally would run across, because he's got a lot of experience. With that comes a little bit of baggage. Like most guys have a ton of experience, also have a ton of habits, and they have a ton of idiosyncrasies. And they want to ride a certain kind of motorcycle and ride it a certain kind of way.
Well, he is kind of a world champ, so
yeah, MotoGP winner, but you can't say that much about anybody riding motorcycles.
Exactly.
It's like there's not that many guys who are MotoGP winners.
Right. So how different was he from the other riders you've worked with, most recently JD and even Josh Herrin? How different of a setup or a feedback does that guy ask for?
he hopped on the bike, which JD just finished. So the pegs were still in JD position and the bars were still spun back like JD had, which is basically our third bike.
Right.
And he hopped on and he's like, yeah, this feels too cramped. We're like, what? You're shorter than JD is. He goes, nah, I like to have my legs a little bit stretched out and my arms a little stretched out. I go, all right. So by the time we moved, Lee went in, moved the bars and pegs for him. He ended up with basically the same exact ergonomics that Jake had. He could literally hop on Jake's bike and ride it.
Really?
The setup ended up being a little bit different. But, so there's some contradictions, let's say, between his weight and his riding.
Yeah.
Like he rides a bike that's made for a big guy, like pretty stiff in the front, doesn't want a whole lot of pitch. He wants it more like a Grand Prix bike. And so that makes some challenges when you're that light and that small. Yeah, so it was interesting to hear some of the things he wanted, but at the end, the basic setup wasn't that different, other than that we ended up making the bike a little bit lower for him. So he liked the bike a little bit lower, and he has a tendency to make the bike back in because he doesn't mass the rear tire very much on the entry. So if you see him in the past, whether it's the Yosh bike or our bike, he end up with both wheels are kind of a little offline going in the corner, and that slows up his entry a little bit. But with all that said, his lap times were really good straight away.
Yeah, he was awfully close to Jake in race 1.
Yeah, I think he was. I think in both races he was, his fastest lap was about 0.3 slower, something like 2.5, 0.3 slower. So his actual outright speed was pretty good. Just I think he's a little bit rusty, needs a few more laps on the bike and maybe a little bit too much winter celebration. So a little more training maybe would have been, with that in mind, Pittsburgh is not a restful racetrack.
It didn't look like it.
No, it's got short straightaways. It's got a lot of elevation changes. It's got corners everywhere. You're on the side of the tire quite a bit. You're trying to open the throttle as much as you can all the time. So you're constantly being pulled back on the bike. You're braking. You're fighting the braking forces. You're accelerating. So you don't get much rest there at all.
Yeah,
you got to be in pretty good shape. And the only way to really be in great shape on a motorcycle is just keep riding them.
Right. So, race 1, obviously he goes, does the thing, finishes second.
Yeah.
First weekend on the bike, comes out like not very much time on the thing and gets second.
About an hour, less than an hour.
I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah, I think it was a surprise to a lot of us because we just didn't know how he was going to take to the Yamaha.
Yeah.
Because Josh is kind of, when he came off that Suzuki and the BMW, he's kind of struggled to get his head back around this bike. And Toni hops on, he was like, oh, I like this motorcycle. He liked the size of the gas tank. He thought it was nice and small. So then on the next QP1, FP1, he was straight away, he was fast. QP1, we started trying to give him what he wants in a motorcycle, and we ended up going a bit backwards.
Yeah, you talked about that, right? Like, the rumors of Toni being kind of a racing engineer.
Yeah, a lot of the more experienced riders will have a lot of ideas of how they want a motorcycle. And so they try to make every motorcycle kind of that way instead of maybe working around what they have. And I don't know if Toni's got that in him, but yeah, he does have a lot of ideas of how he wants something set up, and may not work for let's say Yamaha versus a Suzuki or a Grand Prix bike or a Moto2 bike or whatever, So it'd be a matter of him just maybe doing more laps on that particular motorcycle, learning what the motorcycle likes. But it seemed like he adapted fairly quick, because in the race, if you watch the race, he was using corner speed. He wasn't charging the inside of the corners. He looked pretty smooth.
He didn't look like the Toni of old that would just go right to the inside of the corner, turn in kind of early, and then somehow still manage to drive off.
Yeah, I got some overlays of some of his lines versus Jake, and very, very similar. There's some areas where he did a little bit different. I think maybe some of his entries were a little tight, and he ended up getting a little bit wider on the exit. But for the most part, in a lot of the sectors, he was pretty damn close to the same as far as his style goes, which I thought was pretty impressive that he could pick it up that quick.
So I got some questions coming in, so I figured I'd ask him this.
Sure.
A couple of guys are saying they've been waiting for this for so long, which is weird.
Yeah.
But Ty Bankford, our favorite substitute rider.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's like, you don't have to go into specific details, obviously, but like, how much does a one-off rider get paid for a weekend like that? You know, or
I can't.
Or do they get like a podium bonus or something?
Yeah, that's between the rider and Yamaha, whatever they agree to, you know, or whoever is. We don't do the riders on our end. We do the bikes and the team and the crew and the parts and all that kind of stuff, and the building and the semi truck and everything but the riders.
Yeah.
So I can't really discuss or say or in any kind of detail. And obviously, if somebody wanted to lease a ride, that'd be different than someone of Tony's caliber coming in as substitute.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
somebody might get paid, another way somebody might have to pay.
right.
So every situation is a little different.
So the theme of the weekend, there's a Ricky Von Ricky is asking this or is saying this, but like, you know, through the team's social media and stuff, it seemed like the general consensus was that everybody wanted to see Tony come back.
I mean, he's a very animated. I mean, as far as the team members go,
yeah,
he's a very animated guy. He's very uppity. You know, like his motivation is addicting. You know, so when you have someone's that motivated instead of kind of down and out and bummed out, you know, I've worked with both types of riders. And definitely the team enjoys someone who's more up and happy. Like they really enjoyed JD. JD was just glad to be there. I mean, hopped in his van and drove 13 hours through the night, you know, slept in his van. It's almost the same story. And like, we should always have like a substitute rider the day before you got to show up and they can see how many hoops they have to jump through to get there. But, you know, Tony was the same thing, go and, you know, travel all night long on the plane and have no sleep and show up on setup day. You know, so JD was pretty much the same kind of thing. Showed up on Thursday morning and away he went. So yeah, I mean, the crew always enjoys someone who's motivated and hungry.
So Joseph Novella asks, do we get to pick the rider? And
who's that? Who's we?
That's the team, I guess.
The team.
I mean, obviously, we just talked about that earlier, right? It's like, who's going to ride this thing? And you know, it's not just picking the rider, because then you've also got to get Yamaha to sign off on it, right?
It's more of a mini committee, if you want to call it that. I wouldn't call it as any one particular person picks the rider. But yeah, I mean, Yamaha obviously has to be happy with the choice. And we talk about it and they would say, okay, we want this direction. We want a young rider. We want a fast rider. We want an experienced rider. We want a guy who can win a championship in the first outing, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it depends on the target and the goal. You know, is the goal next year? Then you may want a young rider. Is the goal, oh man, we got to get results right now? Then might be a more experienced rider.
Right.
You know, so all that stuff plays into the equation. I don't know the answer to that. I'll know in October.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So, you know, so he gets second in the first race, and then the second race, it started out well, and then he kind of went backwards a little bit.
Yeah, I think he made a couple mistakes. I don't know if he was. We'd made some improvements that morning, and so he was faster. I mean, he was quite a bit faster, but I think everybody else went a little bit faster as well. And I don't think he ran out of steam, but he was maybe, like I said, a little bit rusty. So I think, and not being as familiar with a motorcycle, you know, a lot of guys don't want to take chances. They got a guest ride, and they don't want to smash up the bike and put the thing on the ground every session. So he did a good job. He kept it clean, got on the podium. Been nice to have another podium, but
he finished. You know, that's still pretty strong.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was right in there with those guys. Had a good fight. Got a lot of good television. and kept the bike in one piece, didn't break anything. I mean, it was pretty easy weekend, you know.
Yeah. So seems like I said,
Didn't knock down his teammate.
Didn't knock down his teammate. You know what? That goes into another tie question. You know, with Toni out there and Jake, you know, with the championship and everything, were there team orders, you know?
No, my order was, if you can beat Jake, go ahead. Just don't rub up against him.
There you go.
That was it. I'm serious, because Jake's got a pretty good championship lead. I can't see it going away anytime soon. I mean, obviously, it would suck if he fell down and we lost by 2 points that Toni took away, let's say, or 5 points or something, you know. But I don't. That's fairly unrealistic at this point. So yeah, there's no team orders like you cannot win. You know, there was none of that. It's like, if you can win, go for it. Just be clean.
So AC wants to know, what do you think is MotoAmerica is missing to get on caliber with British Superbike Championship?
British Superbike. I don't know. We got better bikes than they do.
Yeah, I mean, your guys' bikes are pretty close to World Superbike.
They're almost identical to World Superbike. But actually, we have open RPM rules, which World Superbike doesn't have. The only we're missing that World Superbike does have is kit transmissions. That's it. Gearboxes. The BSB bikes do have more engine internals and this and that, but they don't have any electronic strategies whatsoever. You know, they have some ignition retard stuff. They have no closed loop, you know, traction control, wheelie control, anything like that. So everything's done kind of at the engine level, as far as I know. And you know, good on them. They can ride those things. The BSB series is on a pretty small. We've talked about this before. It's in England. It's a small island, relatively speaking, in the United States. You know, all of England could fit in California. So you can imagine if you had a series that was CRA that went to Sonoma and it went to Buttonwillow and it went to Thunderhill and went to a few ottle places, that would be basically the BSB series, like a regional in our country. You know, they do have some good talented riders, and they obviously have some really good crew. You know, because some of those guys are world level. You know, the crew that's there. So, I mean, it's a good series. I don't know what you mean by on the same caliber. We're getting good television. I mean, you know, guys from Europe come here, they don't exactly win everything. Like Baz is a good example. The guy who's been on a World Superbike podium, hasn't got a single win yet.
Right.
I think he's won a World Superbike, if I remember right. I have to go back in my memory banks there and see. So if that's any comparison, you know, I invite some of the BSB guys to come here and see how they go at it. You know, if it's that simple, have a go at it.
So Tyler comes in and says BSB technology is crazy. The way they do TC with the engine mapping sounds pretty cool.
They don't do TC.
Dropping cylinders and etc. That sound right?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, as far as I know, all they have is throttle mapping and ignition timing. Because I've seen their Motec BSB, unless they've opened up some stuff in the last couple of years, I know what their Motec package looks like. And they have throttle demand stuff. If they're doing that, then they're probably cheating, dropping cylinders and all that. Maybe.
Well, I
mean, if I was in BSB, you know, I wouldn't do it, but I imagine there's probably a million ways to try to cheat the system over there.
So that AC guy is saying they seem to have more full fields.
That's probably possible. You know, I think maybe the series helps the teams out a little bit with funding.
Yeah.
Not sure. You know, it's got to be a little bit cheaper to get to do the BSB series. Can you imagine, like I said, if it's a regional, it's the only game in town. Let's just say every club racer was in California nationally. Every club racer in the United States was in California. How full do you think the fields would be?
Yeah, exactly. Totally makes sense.
It's a different market. Our country is as big as all of Europe. So we have to travel across all the distance. It's very expensive. So it's definitely been a challenge in the United States for many, many years to come up with the funding to do a proper series here. I mean, the AMA was challenged. I mean, when the factories were behind it, then obviously a lot easier because they could drop big bucks into it. But as less and less factory support come in, which I'm really happy about the Ducati thing. That those guys are here and they're doing their thing because that helps everybody out. It raises the level, right?
Yeah.
And there's guys who have minimal factory support, like the Westby team. They do just fine. They're second in the championship. They've won one this year and they've finished runner-up a bunch on the podium. So as a matter of fact, I think only Yamahas have won this year, haven't they?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And I think they have every single track record too.
That also sounds right.
Just facts, not being cocky or anything.
Bully.
Yeah, just the facts.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so just reading here, with Fresh and Lean helping you guys out, obviously, and then Kyle Wyman with the Panera Bread thing. Are you seeing more outside marketing interest?
Sure, hope so. I mean, that seems to be the direction, right?
Yeah.
Because what's that? Go ahead.
There was the Chips, right? The Mission
guys, yeah.
Yeah, those guys. I don't think they're specifically sponsoring a team or anything.
No, they sponsor the baggers, the whole series. However many races there were. And I think those guys do it for the love of the sport because they sponsor an IndyCar, they sponsor flat track, they do a bunch of different things. But yeah, so those kinds of people are what we need in the sport, and that can help the longevity of the sport as well. Because once one company gets in, it seems more advantageous for another company again, kind of like the Monster Red Bull thing. Once you had Red Bull, then you had Monster, and then that stuff went worldwide and so on.
So wanted to ask more about the Toni thing. Is there a chance that we'll see him again on the bikes? You guys gonna field a third one?
I don't know. It's pretty tough because we only have so much assets, and we're going into the last two rounds and all back to back.
Right.
And as far as I know, Josh is healthy and he's ready to go. So, we're thinking about all kinds of different things. Josh does have a child on the way, which is supposed to happen right about the same time as New Jersey. So I don't know how that's going to play out. It might be another last minute phone call, but we'll just keep our powder dry, see how we end up.
So, well, you did tell me something weird about Toni's throttle opening.
Oh yeah.
You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so he's got some weird stuff going on, and this may be just because it's his comfort thing. But here, let me share our data here a little bit. So okay, can you see that thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you look at this thing,
squiggly lines.
Yeah, a whole lot of squiggly lines. Let me first do a Gagne thing. All right, so this would be Gagne doing a lap around. This is his throttle. This is what the engine is seeing. This isn't him doing this weird stuff. So this is the throttle opening. Let me turn on the grip too, so you can kind of look at that. Where'd the grip go? Oops, I think I removed it. All right, so here, real quick. Let me drop grip in here. So yeah, here I remove stuff. I got to go in and set it up in front of you.
Oh, great.
Yeah, 1 second. It only takes a minute. Okay, so that purplish looking thing, which I didn't pick the color it does, that'd be his grip opening, like what he's using at the grip. And then the turquoise looking graph is the actual engine throttle. So you can see how he's like, as soon as he gets to the edge of the track, as soon as he gets to the apex, he boom, straight to open. He's got a lot of confidence in the bike. you know, confidence in the traction control, confidence in the wheelie control. You know, so basically right there, you can see his lean angle, 66.5 degrees, right?
Yeah.
And then he gets the full throttle, for instance, this one corner right here, bottom of the hill, and bottom of the track there. So he's already pinned at 50 degrees, full throttle, hasn't even finished the corner. You see it right there?
Yeah.
He's already full throttle. That's how much confidence he's got in it. And so then we have another graph, which shows us how much full throttle time he actually uses. See that graph right there? So he's getting 34.8 seconds of full throttle time per lap.
Per 34.8 seconds
Per lap of full throttle, which is,
and that's Jake.
That's Jake. So you want to do a little test? How many people? Maybe somebody can guess how much full throttle time that Toni got.
Maybe. Let's see what people are thinking.
Anyone want to give us a guess
Of how much full throttle time that Toni is gonna have?
Yeah.
Oh wow. All right, so
Per lap.
yeah, anyone want to take a shot at that in the comments before Richard reveals this? So we're on a couple of second delay, Richard.
Yeah, that's right. So we can talk about some other stuff too while we're at it. So
yeah,
you can see kind of how he opens the throttle, like I said, and especially like between corners, square. And if I put on brake pressure too, you'd see that it wasn't very much lag time between his braking and his throttle opening. Kind of like what Cameron was doing last year, where there was like zero delay between off throttle and on the brake and then back on the gas again.
Yeah,
so no post time.
You were saying that you were going to use something like that to make fun of me over data to show how much.
Dude, you might as well be cruising Whittier Boulevard. You're coasting so much.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. All right, so I'm getting a bunch of comments. 14 seconds, 28 seconds, 26 seconds, 45 seconds, 69 seconds, 3/4 of Gagne's.
3/4, about 10 seconds. No, 3/4. Yeah, it's about 20-something seconds. Anything else?
35, 20.
All right. You want to know how much?
How much?
All right, let's open her up. So Toni got, oops. I clicked that thing twice. Damn it. Okay, Toni got, here we go, 8 seconds of full throttle.
You got a rodeo.
8 seconds. Can you believe that? So this is throttle opening right here. He was hardly ever full throttle on his fastest lap. Yeah, so pretty amazing how he can do the lap time and never open the throttle.
So he's right around 75% throttle everywhere.
Well, I mean, we can do an overlay. Pick a corner. Okay, so going down. I don't know, coming up the hill here, right? So coming up the hill, his grip position was by that time, Gagne had already done almost 15 seconds of full throttle, and he'd only done 3.8 seconds of full throttle.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then his grip position would be 77% climbing the hill. I remember I told Cam Peterson how much throttle he's using. He goes, I can't believe that guy beat me using only 3/4 throttle.
I mean, he's still able to do the times. Is it just because he's so small?
Yeah, I asked him, I said, how come I open the throttle all the way? He says, well, I feel the tire and I feel like there's no need to go anymore. So I think some of that is his ability to his weight and also needing more time on the motorcycle to totally trust it. Because I think it's a lot to ask from your brain. You want me to stop sharing this?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's a lot to ask from your brain to just go, let me get full leaned over on my knee and just pin the throttle. Most people think I'm going for a ride if I ever do that.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that. Trusting the electronics is really hard.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, right? It's against your survival instinct.
Yeah, especially if you've ridden prior to electronic.
All the rider aids, which
Yeah,
Tony has, right? But I mean,
right.
he goes back to MotoGP, and they had a lot of rider aids. But I think the systems are getting so sophisticated. Even the old MotoGP stuff probably is par with it, or maybe not even sophisticated. You know, like the real old stuff.
Right.
Especially if you go into Moto2, because he was a Moto2 champion, and Moto2 has no rider aids. I think the days he did was on the Honda. And so he should be pretty pinned everywhere on the Honda engine, because it was a dog.
Yeah,
the
that
Moto2 engine,
yeah, the Honda.
CBR engine.
Yeah, that was a turd.
Yeah, it was a dog. So anyway, so that I found that kind of interesting. The guy could ride around 3/4 throttle all race long and be competitive.
Yeah.
And the other thing too was he didn't use a lot of front wheel stroke.
Yeah.
Like he didn't bury the front end in there, but he required some pretty stiff springs in the front. So he didn't like the bike pitching over on snows, because he wanted to be very aggressive on the brake. So we used pretty stiff springs with him to get him the feel he wanted, and he never used all the stroke. I mean, I can show you some of that data too, but Gagne was fine with things to the bump stop, just about every braking zone, and he would be 80 millimeters or so, or maybe he got to about 100 millimeters in the race, only in one section, and the fork goes 130, just as an idea.
Wow. I mean, you were telling me about something like that, about his that was like one of those weird things you were saying about his riding, about how he did it affect the tire pressure or something, or the temperature? Like, I don't recall, but like you were saying that he would be so hard on the brakes, but the front still didn't dive down.
Yeah, it has to be his weight, but it's the way he applies the brake. He applies it more progressively, so he doesn't spike it like a big flash. It doesn't pitch the bike over on its nose. He grabs it and then he feeds into it. So the front end never really fully compresses. And so there's some negatives to that, because they don't transfer all the weight onto the front tire to produce grip. But also, if the front's really stiff, then you don't absorb any of the energy of the motorcycle, so the back end slides fairly easily on the entry. So those two things happen. And then similar, and with the rear, we end up not softening the rear, but opening up the preload quite a bit, because he couldn't get the rear to compress. You'd have to shift backwards enough to get some grip out of it. But once we did that, we got some stability out of it, and he really liked the motorcycle. That was right before race 2. I think we did that in QP2, where he was in, I think it was in the top 2 or 3 for a bit, and then he got nipped at the end and ended up 4th.
So Canfield wants to know, what percentage of the time are the throttle plates at 100% versus the grip at 100%?
The grip is open on more. I don't have the math on that, but the grip is open more than the throttle plates. So that time we gave was the throttle plates. So if I had to say throttle plates versus grip, I'd say the grip is probably open an extra 20 seconds, because the throttle, the bike is feeding the throttle. So that's the confidence builder on the bike. You go straight to the stop, and then the bike says, okay, you can accept this much torque at the rear wheel, this much force at the rear wheel in this particular instance, and it feeds it to you. Same with the kit box. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
The power clipping and then the torque delivery and all that. That happens by rolling the throttle in. So that's pretty normal on just about any motorcycle. You can pin it and the throttle feeds to you. It isn't 1-to-1. There's a lot of guys that go out and think, oh man, I'm going to make my throttle 1-to-1. I'm going to flash it 1-to-1. Be superhero. Well, they might as well get a cape, because it's going to be flying through the air.
So Chris Bates says, with stiffer front springs, was the turn in harder, slacker? And you had to lower the front and make other changes to compensate to get a good turn in?
Yeah, no, like I said, he was we end up lowering the whole motorcycle at some point, if you like that. We lower the bike and raise the pivot. So we had grip at the end, so you went faster on that warm up on that Sunday morning. We said, wow, the bike's got really good grip now. But then in the race, he kind of petered out. whether it was the tire starting to fall off a little bit, or the drop was, sometimes when you have a really good grip in the beginning, you're able to do some fast lap times, the drop is a little more significant. You know, when the tire drops, your tire usually drops about 5 or 6 laps into the race. And so when you have a significant drop, sometimes it takes away your confidence. Where Jake, he's tall enough, he manages the tire. If you watch Jake getting off the corner, he'll move the bike into a grippier spot of the tire as he exits the corner. He'll go full throttle, push the bike up.
Yeah,
And then, he does that thing, right? But he'll do it sometimes in steps because he's searching for grip. And I think that's one of the things that he learned to do riding motocross, possibly, but also able to apply it properly on this motorcycle, not motocross style, you know.
Right.
So I think he managed to improve that over the winter and then through this whole race year. So one of the reasons I think he's been hard to beat is how he's able to get off the corner with full throttle.
So with the next rounds coming up, you do have the return of Josh Herrin.
Yeah.
Any plans there? Or like anything special or anything you learned from Toni and JD that could help?
Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we learned a little bit from Toni. JD was completely different because maybe his flat track experience. You know, JD wanted a lower rake bike because he didn't really trail the brake very much. Toni, like I said, was a bit of an anomaly with the front end because he didn't use a lot of stroke in the front, but he still wanted a high trail bike. He wanted a long rake. He wanted a long motorcycle. He wanted to be able to ride it really aggressively. Like I said, he kind of rode a big boy's bike,
right?
You know, for being such a small guy. And where other than the trail, sometimes the smaller guys want a lot of trail. You know, so Toni likes a lot of trail on the bike. JD didn't want as much trail because of the whole flat track experience, I'm sure. And Josh is somewhere in between on the front end. But the rear stuff that we learned off Toni might help Josh a bit because he has similar, I guess, complaints on the motorcycle. You know, so maybe that'll help Josh out with the next event. We'll have to look and see. You know, he struggled on the Yosh bike there. Looking at some of the stats. And then, I mean, he struggled on the BMW quite a bit. The last good run he had at New Jersey was our bike, and he won in the wet. And he was poised to win the second one too. And it was also a pretty wet weekend. So then before that, he rode the factory Yamaha and finished 4th and 6th or 7th, I think. So it'd be nice if we can get a good run out of him there. Yeah, but the stats aren't brilliant, but neither were Gandhi's stats going to this year. So you never know until you get there, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, have you spoken to Josh? Is he?
Yeah, he came by the shop the other day. He seemed like he was good. He picked up some leathers to go to your TrackDaz, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I told him you were sick, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm going to stay away from him." And I said, and then he goes, "Oh, wait a minute, I already had COVID."
Wow. Yeah, the pneumonia whooped my ass.
Yeah, you should have got another COVID test, man. But you don't have the same stuff as a COVID person, though. You know, like Josh, it really kicked his ass. He lost a bunch of weight. I mean, the guy looked like he was swimming in his shirt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you guys have Herrin back on the team. You have 3 races in Jersey, and then the last round's at Barber.
Yeah, 3 races in Jersey, 3 races at Barber. You know, I don't want to sound too optimistic, but hopefully we can wrap up that #1 plate. But you know, we'll have to see how it goes. I mean, anything can happen, right? Last year at Indy, you know, we wrapped up the #1 plate with Cameron. Had a pretty crappy weekend. You know, he fell down like 3 times, twice in one race. You know, so it was a pretty weird weekend. And that's the same weekend that you know, Skoltz broke his foot and didn't score a single point for the last 6 races. So anything can happen. We can't be too optimistic, but hopefully we'll get that done. And I know they did some patchwork at New Jersey. I guess they got it all sorted out and all smoothed out in some of the corners there. There's some pavement coming up, so we'll have to see how the grip is there. But it's the same for everyone. I don't care if they put a Caldwell Park type jump in the middle of the damn thing, you know. we'll figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what, man? I
Yeah.
wish you guys the best of luck. And
Yeah. Thanks, dude.
yeah, that's been fun chat. That Tony stuff was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is so animated. You know, it was funny because we're all sitting there just laughing. One time he's talking about the bike and he's sitting there. I don't know if I could do it properly, but he's sitting there going, I go down the straightaway and I'm like, wow, and I brake and I'm like, oh shit, and I turn. Oh, I made it one more time. That's the way he describes the bike.
That's hilarious.
That was like every session. It was funny.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff we're looking for, man. That sounds hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing, the guy's like, he has all the sounds of the motorcycle down. You know, maybe it's from having kids. I don't know.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
like it makes every engine sound and every suspension action and really super animated. It's pretty funny. It's fun to work with him.
So like I guess
I've only seen the angry side of him where he's trying to kill Cameron at MotoAmerica after he got crashed out. I'm gonna punch you in the face right now if you don't shut up. I heard that part of him too. I was laughing then too. I thought it was pretty funny.
So yeah, any parting thoughts for the next couple of rounds?
I know it's gonna be interesting. That's all I gotta say. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one day you're gonna get your data logger and you're gonna get out there and do a couple laps so we can put you on here and make fun of you.
Yeah, I'm kind of shooting for the next round of Thunder Hill.
Oh yeah.
I'll ride with those dorks again.
Yeah, we don't have any data on our bikes from Thunder Hill. We haven't been there on our bikes.
Hmm.
We were there with JD Beach last time, but I do have some Yamaha US data from there. You know, Cameron, those guys would test there quite a bit.
Make fun of me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we can always compare and see how much throttle opening you got.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see, you know, it'd be interesting one day if I ever got my hands on somebody else's data, look at some of the other riders in our paddock and see how much throttle opening do you really have and how much are you using it and what lean angle are you using it at? That kind of tells you the whole story.
Well, that and the lap times.
Well, yeah, well, they kind of equate, you know. You know who was I remember Steve Rapp was always like Mr. Slow in and fast out. And he would some tracks he would do really, really well at. New Jersey was one of them. He always went good there. But he just didn't have the braking, you know, he didn't have the whole package like the braking. He was kind of so on the braking, but he was really strong on the throttle.
Yeah, I remember I had a pretty fancy pass on that guy at Chuckwalla, and you're like, no big deal. He's like the worst breaker in the paddock.
Yeah. And he still could run up front. One Daytona.
Yeah.
You know, and didn't you crash that weekend?
I don't recall.
Is that where you got the nickname Dust Off?
Maybe. Well, the nickname you gave me, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
What kind of fits, you know?
Oh man.
Chuck Wall is pretty dusty, and Dust Off's that military, you know, helicopter that comes in and evacuates you.
Oh man. I think we've taken this too far now.
All right.
All right.
Well, good luck. Back to work.
Yeah, go back to work.
All right, later.